I'm Nisha DeGaring.
And I'm Doug Jessop. Family Heritage Stories exist to give you ideas and examples of stories from the past to help shape the future.
It could be anything like a recipe from Grandma or a vacation location where your ancestors came from. These stories deserve to be passed down.
If stories aren't passed down from generation to generation, they're lost. And it's as though those people never existed.
In this episode of Family Heritage Stories, people share those stories about special connections.
We all benefit from heroes among us. Now, they're going to say, it's just part of the job. But it's more than that. It's time for Hero Salute Stories. I think everyone of our generation will remember where they were when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
Where were you?
Okay, when the first plane struck, I was home. I was actually at my desk on my computer, and my oldest daughter, she was going to. She was going to work or college, or whichever it was at the time. She comes down and she says to me, "Daddy, you know, planes just struck the tower, the World Trade Center." I immediately turned the television on, immediately turned the radio on. They had a total recall of firefighters. They said all New York City firefighters report to there, and they set up different staging areas throughout the city for you to report to. So I just happened to be the park that was closest to me was one of the staging areas. Grabbed my gear, got in my car, went down there. And he said, "Cap, you got your gear?" I said, "Yep." It's okay. Here's 5 guys. Get on the bus. Okay, got on the bus, and off we went. Now, I remember we went Long Island Expressway, got on the BQE. We're heading into Manhattan. You can see the second tower had been hit and was coming down. Had come down in the meantime. You could see the 2 columns of smoke, or the 1 huge column of smoke coming up. We were going to go over the Brooklyn Bridge. We get to the Brooklyn Bridge, and there's such an outflux of people come out of Manhattan, we can't get over with the bus. Okay, so we turn around, go back on the BQE, head a little, I guess it was east, we headed to the Williamsburg Bridge. Went over the Williamsburg Bridge, came into Manhattan, but now you're north of the site. At that point in time, which was, in hindsight, a God's bless, because the wind that was out of the north that day, it was a crystal clear day. It was a gorgeous day. I mean, beautiful fall day in New York City. We came in and we set up a staging area. They said report to the staging area, report into the command post. We were at the Stuyvesant High School. It's one of the specialty schools in the city of New York. And basically, we waited. Okay, 7 World Trade Center was a 43-story building. We had OEM in that building, Office of Emergency Management. We had a couple of 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel stored in that building to operate all the generators, because this is where every agency met in an emergency to handle the emergency. Okay, I was fortunate. I had worked there a couple of times when I was in headquarters. And you know, it was the idea of OEM is that you got a street collapse. So okay, I can get up, I can go over to Con Ed's desk, and I can say, I need 12 steel plates to cover this hole in the street. Can you get them for me? You got it. You know, it was one-on-one. The location, I don't know who owned this building that they decided to put OEM in it, but it was next to the #1 target in the world. So we waited until about 5 o'clock that evening, watching that building burn before it collapsed. And right around that time, the F-15s were coming up the river, up the Hudson River. I mean, the hairs on my neck still stand up when I think of the and when everybody's, yeah, you know, but we really couldn't start to examine the site and start digging for people until now you had all sorts of apparatus coming in. I mean, everybody, volunteers from all around the world were coming. I mean, we were getting units from Jersey, and you know, there's mutual aid is one of the things with fire departments. So the deputy that I had seen, he said to me, okay, I must have been there until maybe about 10 o'clock at night. He said, okay, Cap, take up, you know, come back, you know. So I went back to my firehouse, got up the next morning, got another 5 guys, got them in my car. We got all our equipment, went back down. So now they were antsy. They wanted to dig. They wanted to, like, you know, like we're gonna find. You're not finding nothing here. You know, you're finding pieces. You're finding crushed helmets. You're finding, you know. I says, wait, we got to do this right. I got them proper breathing equipment. I ended up. They gave me 9 building inspectors, and our job was to examine surrounding properties. All this rubble that came down from 100 and some odd story building, I mean, all you saw was pulverized papers floating and this gray matter in the air. You didn't see desks, you didn't see file cabinets, you didn't see anything that you would associate with an office building. Everything was pulverized. These were pancake collapses, by the way. There's 3 different kinds of collapses. Pancake is the if you're in the business, this is the best you could get, because they come straight down. They just, you know, they're not lean-tos, they're not taking out 14 blocks in that direction. They, you know, so from that point of view, it was. But our job was to force entry into the surrounding buildings, to get the buildings department people in there so they could check the roofs. We were very concerned about all the rubble on top of these buildings, that if we had a rainy fall, the weight load would have caused secondary collapses. You know, we did that, and that was the whole day, it was strange, because they had, by this point in time, they had dogs on the pile. They were sniffing. They were, you know, but there was nobody said, hey, I found the body. You know, it was very serene, very, like, you know. As a matter of fact, if you remember the one fireman that was with George Bush, he just passed away. You know, yeah, he's. We lost 343 firemen that day, and most of the funerals that I went to, those boxes contained only parts of the body. You know, they did DNA. One of my probies that I raised as a lieutenant was into the fire marshals, and the marshals they sent them to the morgue. I remember him telling me, we worked on these bones all day. It ended up to be a rack of lamb from top of the Trade Center. There's a restaurant up there. Yeah. They were, you know. And for months after that, they were, if you took a black light and you shined it, you got matter on all of those buildings. You know, it was just, everything was pulverized.
How many of those firefighters that lost their lives, if you had to guess, how many do you think you knew or had touched?
Oh, knew well, maybe 10. Worked with throughout my career, 30, 40.
That's a lot.
You know, we had firefighters. We had about 8,000 in the New York City Fire Department. You know, and that was, like I said, we lost 343 that day, but now, last September 11th, 2023, we hit 343 extra deaths, you know, related to the Trade Center, not at the Trade Center. All the cancers, most of the cancers.
Hero Salute stories are made possible by the generous support of viewers like you. Go to fedorafoundation.org to donate today.
In this episode of Family Heritage Stories, country music singer-songwriter Rick Steele shares stories about his special connections.
For real down-on-the-farm folksy fun, for real old-fashioned slapstick comedy, for a visit with country music's top stars like the dynamic Gatlin Brothers, perennial favorite, the Carter family, and stars of tomorrow like Kentucky Country. Where else would you turn but to Hee Haw, home of television's most fetching females? Co-hosting with Roy this week are Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, and you're invited.
Get together for Hee Haw, Sunday at 6.
Here's Cal Worthington and his dog Spot.
If you're a little short of cash, go see Cal. Trouble's over in a flash, go see Cal.
The down payment he'll arrange. Get a 10-day trial exchange. Go see Cal, go see Cal, go see Cal. If you buy a new Ford car or truck from any dealer, I'll give you this cordless telephone. You don't have to buy from me. All I want you to do is see me first, give me first chance to steal, and I'll stand on my head to beat anybody's deal. It's Worthington Ford in Federal Way. We're open till midnight every day. Give us a call. Call us collect.
There's a special bond between grandparents and grandkids.
Tell me a story about your grandma or grandpa.
Tell me a story about one of your grandparents. Well, let's pick a grandma. Tell me a story about one
My
of your grandparents.
grandmother was a remarkable human being. She lived to be 95. She lost her husband when I was 3, which would have been in the 30s, and she raised 2 of her grandsons on her farm up in Willard, Utah. And she told a lot of stories and wrote down some of her history, which I published in a book. And she was just a remarkable human being. She could do anything, and she baked the best cookies you ever tasted.
Oh, yeah.
And during the war, where I grew up, there was rationing, so only farmers had sugar, and she was a farmer. So.
Yeah. So what was her name?
Her name was Pamela Stoddard Gale. The Stoddards were another interesting story. My great-grandfather was a Benjamin Franklin Stoddard. He couldn't read or write. His family was part of the Union Pacific founding families, but he went in a different direction and became an adventurer and traveled all over the West and somehow ended up in Uinta, Utah, where he met and married my grandmother.
Well, I was just in Uinta.
Great-grandmother.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Don Gale. You're watching Family Heritage Stories, and we'll be right back.
Mary Baird, what do you call 2 octopus that look exactly alike? Identical! What do you call a pencil with an eraser on both ends? Pointless.
What does heritage mean to you?
My mom and dad were attending LSU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and they had a radio show called The Singing Sweethearts. And I guess I was the result of the relationship.
Yes, you were.
Anyway, so apparently they knew each other intimately. And it was a relationship built on being almost, for all practical purposes, not necessarily the gypsy culture as we know it traditionally in heritage for the last several hundred years, but gypsies and a lifestyle. I can remember moving into a boat in Miami in 1964 when I was 12 years old, a 53-foot Huckins that was sinking the whole time we had it. And we literally went up the Intercoastal Waterway and sang at a different marina every day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying anybody liked it,
Yeah.
you know,
okay.
or that anybody really showed up, but we did.
Okay.
And it's how we paid for all of our fuel to get to New York to live at the World's Fair in the New York Marina, where we performed for 2 years at the Protestant and Orthodox Pavilion right next to RCA Color Central. The first color studio in the world was there.
Oh yeah.
And it was a big fishbowl where people walked around in the staircase, and I got to be in the fishbowl. And anytime they wanted a crowd, they'd take the 11-year-old kid and put him up there and let him sing, and everybody would, oh, it'd be cute. The place would fill up, and then they would do whatever they were going to do after me. So that was my job at the World's Fair, other than throwing frisbees.
But there's one thing that you talked about with your mom.
Okay.
And I'm going to put you on the spot on this one. Okay. Because she's watching right now, and she might do a video about this for all I know.
She will.
Okay.
Mom will be taking this. She'll absolutely.
Not on the road.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it could be on the road, but not to a stage, but just to you. Okay. You're a little kid, little boy. Okay.
I got it.
You know, and you know, you're having a rough day or whatever. Was there a kind of a song that your mom, going back in the memory banks, would sing to you, not to the audience, but would sing to you, that said, "Oh wow, that was."
You know what was so funny is that I really don't remember and this is a crazy answer. I never thought about it. Great question, because it evokes an answer that I would have never thought of. I know my mom sang to me every day. I know she sang to me every night. I kicked the hymnal out of her hands when she was 8 months pregnant with me, singing in the choir. So I know what my mother's voice sounds like. The Jordanaires, when they weren't traveling with Elvis, were traveling with my mom. Elvis and my mom exchanged Christmas cards. My mom and dad had a black and white television show in the 50s in Memphis. All of the people that you see involved in Elvis, the Stamps, Jordanaires, all those, I was raised around. I thought everybody was like Elvis. I didn't, you know. Because when you're a kid, you just think this is normal. But the weird answer to your question is no. And the reason why that's weird is because she was always singing to me. There was never one song, because every time we set up anywhere, every time we went anywhere, every time there was a microphone up anywhere, I'm in the front row waiting to go on stage, or I'm mixing sound, or I'm helping move in or load out. We carried pianos and organs and band instruments with us. And we had to set up, perform, and then tear down and drive. And there were years when I did 450, 500 shows a year.
Wow.
I would go perform in a high school and then a grammar school and then in a concert that night.
Have you ever wondered how an object becomes important enough to be passed down from generation to generation? Well, later in the show, we share one of our viewers' treasures remembered.
Hi, this is Doug Jessop. I was recently impressed by an interview with a gentleman by the name of Mike Tingey. Now, he brought an outline of different things we wanted to talk about. We're not talking paragraphs here. We're not talking big, huge stories. We're talking a word here or there. With those simple notes, I was able to weave in transitions that made the story kind of go in a rhythmic pace, if you will, because he wants to make sure these stories are passed down to his children and his grandchildren. Life's kind of funny that way. The interaction of stories and experiences, is it fate or is it circumstance? Well, personally, I believe that things happen for a reason. The point is, are you actually listening? Are you in a place mentally, physically, emotionally to be able to understand and be receptive to those lessons that life is trying to teach you? It kind of reminds me of the line from Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get. Well, I understand that, but you know what? We need to put a big asterisk next to it because, sorry to tell you kids, but there's a cheat sheet in a lot of these boxes. Those little squiggles on the chocolates, they mean something. They're just little subtle cues. Question is, are you looking for those subtle cues? That's the mission of the Fedora Foundation and Family Heritage Stories. One story at a time, one experience at a time, collected, preserved, and distributed to the next generation. This show is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you. Now, if you like family heritage stories, and I hope you do because you're watching right now, we'd sure appreciate your donation today at fedorafoundation.org.
I'm Rick Steele, and you're watching Family Heritage Stories.
Your history is everywhere, if you know where to look. But searching through all this? Are you kidding me? Actually, Kindex makes it easy to gather records and add them to your online archive. So everyone can jump in and index their records, making every word searchable. With Kindex, I know them anyway.
You learn a lot about traditions, values, and culture when you travel.
Attention, galactic travelers. All space flights have been delayed. Again.
We've all been there. You book $1 million seat on a spaceship, get all dressed up for a 15-minute space vacation, then your space flight gets delayed. But did you know there's an out-of-this-world experience that's a lot closer, doesn't cost millions of dollars, and has oxygen?
Right here, in Iceland, in Iceland, in Iceland, in Iceland.
Look at these lunar landscapes. Alien life forms. Enjoy food that's fresh. Not freeze-dried. And air. In many ways, Iceland is a lot like Mars.
If Mars had hot tubs.
Isn't he funny?
So, space tourists, you could keep waiting for a trip to an endless void, or you could just come to Iceland. And if you already made it to space, just look out for our billboard.
Love, exciting, come aboard, we're expecting you. The Love Boat
promises something for everyone. Set a course for adventure, your mind on a new romance. It's life, welcome aboard, it's life.
Objects with stories are treasures remembered.
The instrument you have got right here is a special one that has a story, and part of the feature of the show is everyone has a story, but objects with stories are treasures remembered.
Wow, what a cool thing. It's a great idea. Thank you. This is a D35 Martin. That makes it pretty special in itself. There's not a whole lot of those. There's probably less than 300 of this specific guitar in the world, and I don't deserve it. Inside, which you probably can't see, but we'll give you a picture to post maybe at this point in the show.
Thank you.
It's signed by Johnny Cash's son, John Carter. It's signed by the man who built the guitar, E.F. Martin. And it is numbered, and you have to be endorsed by the Cash Foundation to get one of these things. And you kind of stand in line. It's not something that you go down to your local store and buy.
No.
And it's got Johnny Cash's signature here in pearl. And the headstock, there's a good shot of that headstock. I'll bet that's pretty good. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but this guitar is split all the way from here.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
Down through here, and that happened on tour about 2 months ago. And I took the guitar completely, everything apart from the inside, and I opened this up a little bit and filled it all with super glue.
Oh man!
You know that guy that hangs by his hat on television? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And then I put it back together overnight, and then I took black lady's fingernail polish and lacquer and went all back down it. And so I can't believe it, but it stays just like new. So I'm gonna leave it like that.
Okay.
You know, if you go to war, you get a scar. This one's been around the world probably a dozen times. I got to play bass with Johnny Cash in 1969, and it was one of those moments in time where you really don't expect anything like that to happen. I was just standing in the right place at the right time with an upright bass.
Yeah.
And he walked up, he introduced me, and he gave me $25, and the next thing I knew, I was in. I hear the train coming, it's coming around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps passing on. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I got to record at this house. And even when you hear this guitar, you start going, hey, that sounds like Johnny's guitar. And it's because it is Johnny's guitar. It's literally built out of exactly the same wood, same specifications.
Everyone has a story.
And sometimes those stories are told through music.
Family Heritage Series, my favorite song on the radio. I love those stories, I love the old glories and the things that make us all wanna go. Watching that television, bringing about that new concision. I don't know what that word means, but I was just writing it down, messed it up, and I'm really sorry, but you need to watch the show.
What makes you smile? Spry Natural Xylitol mints make me smile. I think it might help you too.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
The Fedora Foundation supports the collection, preservation, and distribution of diverse stories of traditions, values, and culture through Family Heritage Stories, on TV and online at familyheritagestories.org.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nisha Dagaring.
And I'm Doug Jessop.